Crónicas de la Noche. Palabras con imagen. El análisis de los acontecimientos que influyen en nuestra vida con el periodista Francisco Durán Rosillo.
Frank Durán Rosillo te saluda y los saluda a todos ustedes, su amiga María Celeste Raraz, para invitarlos a que se suscriban a mi canal de YouTube, María Celeste Raraz, tal como mi nombre, donde les informo todas las semanas sobre entrevistas que tienen un tema que ayuda a mejorarnos como personas y de paso son interesantes. Las pueden encontrar en mi canal de YouTube, así que los espero. Y se suscriben gratis.
La prensa norteamericana acaba de informar en varios de sus noticiarios que, aparte de ser la contienda electoral que empezará en algunas horas, la más difícil, la más violenta, la más cuestionada por los actos corruptos del partido oficial. De hecho, a algunos canales de la prensa alemana, algunos corresponsales, ya dan por ganadora a Claudia Sheinbaum o como favorita. Eso no se me hace, no se me hace objetivo, puesto que la elección todavía no sucede. Lo mismo está pasando con algunos, no todos, algunos corresponsales norteamericanos. No sé de qué manera están manejando las relaciones públicas en el extranjero, el partido oficial, que se atrevan a decir que Claudia Sheinbaum es la favorita, cuando hemos visto en videos que se la han pasado repartiendo dinero, corrompiendo al electorado y haciendo de esta elección la más corrupta. De hecho, yo en programas pasados he dicho que el INE se ha visto muy mal al no amonestar a Claudia Sheinbaum en uno de los debates al decir que la elección era solo un protocolo o algo así. Están mal. Y los periodistas que lo están diciendo están peor. ¿Cuánto dinero les pagaron? Bueno, todo empezó con aquella cuestionada encuesta del Grupo Reforma que me dejó defraudado al ver que decían que Claudia Sheinbaum llevaba la delantera sobre Xóchitl Gálvez. Al Esquirol en algunos lugares sí lo mencionan, en otros no. Y como hay otros esquiroles, pues a veces es mejor quedarse callados. Pero yo siento que Google, que anunció que va a hacer un poderoso ejercicio de trends, o sea, aparte del conteo rápido de las encuestas de salida de las casillas, que los mexicanos a veces no cooperamos muy honestamente con eso, no todos, hay unos que sí, otros que no, hay canales de televisión en línea que se han ofrecido a recibir denuncias de todos los actos violatorios en la elección. De hecho, en Chiapas ya quemaron cajas de boletas marcadas a favor de Morena y a la gente le siguen ofreciendo dinero. Tengo entendido, me avisa una persona, que también en la frontera de Tuxtla Gutiérrez, Chiapas, bueno, esa es la capital, creo que es Ciudad Cuauhtémoc, yo he andado por allá varias veces, están recibiendo migrantes y les están haciendo credenciales de elector al vapor para que voten allí en las ciudades fronterizas y les están dando su tarjeta de $1,200. ¿De dónde sale todo este dinero? Honestamente, eso me hace sentir, pues, muy defraudado. Me hace sentir triste y frustrado. En ocasiones digo, bueno, ¿de qué manera podemos reclamar objetividad si el INE no está respondiendo, no está documentando tanta queja que hay de la gente, de los partidos de oposición? Y pues yo realmente me quedo de una manera tristemente frustrado al ver que pues este INE, el Instituto Nacional Electoral, no está haciendo lo necesario para poder cumplir con el electorado. Pero vamos a ver dos reportes. El primero es de la cadena ABC News, que logré conseguir el permiso y la traducción. Permítanme un segundo. Perdónenme, estoy en vivo, no puedo cortar. Y pues, aunque estuve pasando videos de cómo la gente está inconforme por el hecho de que Claudia Sheinbaum pues no tiene ninguna retórica, va a ser una continuación. De hecho, López Obrador la va a manejar como si fuera su moped. Vaya usted a saber cómo la maneje, si desde su rancho o se quede en Palacio Nacional, pero eso es adelantarnos. Yo no estoy de acuerdo con todo esto. Yo pienso que nos debemos de esperar a que se dé el paso democrático. Y una vez ya que se vea que hay un triunfo contundente con pruebas y que los organismos electorales actúen de una manera equitativa, yo lo aceptaré. Mientras tanto, yo no doy ningún crédito a esta situación. Vamos nosotros a ver en este reportaje toda la situación, cómo se ve venir.
Presidential election is being held in Mexico. Historic because it's either one of the if either one of the front runners wins, I say that 6 times, the next Mexican president will be a woman.
In an election that has been seriously marred by violence and drought, could Claudia Sheinbaum, a Jewish former environmental engineer and former mayor of Mexico City, be the next person to lead this country? Or will it be Xochitl Galvez, the opposition presidential candidate, a former tech entrepreneur and senator?
Our Matt Rivers is in Mexico City. Matt, I mean, this has been fascinating to watch. How did Mexico get to this historical race between 2 women? I mean, one of them Jewish, the other from indigenous roots.
You know, you could say about both of these women that it's about, I won't use the expletive, time, given Mexico's long history, both on the indigenous side, you know, so much of Mexico's population comes from indigenous roots, and on the other side, even though the Jewish population is much smaller here, Claudia Sheinbaum is a longtime person in politics. She's been around for a long time. She was the mayor of Mexico City, and yet Mexico's historically has been dominated by this patriarchal system of governance. That will no longer be the case. One of those 2 women, even though there is a third-party candidate running, will be president, and in all likelihood it will be Claudia Sheinbaum. She used to be the mayor of Mexico City. She's a background of environmental engineer. She's more or less the hand-picked successor to the current president, Andrés Manuel López Obrador. And on the other hand, you have Xochitl Galvez, who was quite poor growing up. She even sold snacks on the street. She worked her way up to become an entrepreneur and then a senator, and now she's leading this coalition of center-right parties that really used to be the dominant force in Mexican politics, and now the only thing this coalition agrees on is defeating Claudia Sheinbaum.
Matt, a little while ago, you sent an internal note around to all of us at ABC outlining and describing in grim detail the violence that has surrounded these elections. Talk about that, what authorities can do, can't do to preserve some kind of stability on election day so that people can go vote.
Yeah, this has been so far the most violent election cycle in Mexican modern history, and that's saying something given the grip that organized crime has on this country. And yet the numbers that we're seeing going back to the beginning of the election cycle last year up until today are pretty staggering. More than 700 people have been targeted, whether it's through threats, whether it's through assault, or whether it's through murders. 231 people have been killed during election violence, including 34 candidates. So it is a staggeringly violent election season here in Mexico, the kind of thing that frankly you don't see often in the democratic world. And the reason behind it is organized crime by and large. They are looking to exert influence principally on the municipal level, and if candidates stand in their way, or if they feel that killing a candidate or an elected official could serve their ways in a different criminal enterprise, then they'll do that. So this is just Mexican elections in 2024.
Yeah, it's horrifying, really. And Matt, we're very glad that you're there to cover it for us and bring it to our attention. Matt Rivers, thanks very much.
Mexicans go to the polls on Sunday in an historic election. Both the front-runner, the former mayor of Mexico City, Claudia Sheinbaum, and the main challenger are women, meaning Mexico is almost certain to choose its first woman president. But what impact will that have in a nation with deeply embedded problems of machismo and sexual violence against women and girls? Our Mexico correspondent Will Grant reports from the campaign trail in the eastern state of Veracruz.
Claudia Sheinbaum is so close to making history in Mexico, she can almost touch it. Polls suggest she's on the verge of becoming Mexico's first woman president. With her nearest rival also a woman, she told the BBC it's a sign Mexican society is evolving.
It's a symbol for Mexico. I think it's a symbol for the world, but it's a symbol for Mexico. I see it in young girls. They are exciting that a woman is going to be president. And it changed culture for women and for men. And you have to develop policies to reduce violence for women.
In Mexico, that's easier said than done. But the former mayor of Mexico City is confident of victory, promising to continue the popular social development policies of her mentor, President Andrés Manuel López Obrador.
Other nations in Latin America have had women presidents in the past, Brazil, Chile and Argentina, for example. But there's something about the ingrained machismo in Mexican society, particularly these rural indigenous communities, that makes this election so historic.
Few know how hard it is to break that culture better than the members of FemCafe, a women's coffee cooperative in Veracruz. In most Mexican agricultural co-ops, women aren't allowed to vote or hold decision-making roles. But in FemCafe, they control the entire enterprise, from bean to cup. And they had some advice for the next president.
It's not just about being a woman, but about being gender conscious, which is a very different thing. For example, the agricultural ministry has never been led by a woman, and a woman's perspective in that role would make a huge difference to the rural sector.
The BBC requested an interview with her closest rival, Xochitl Gálvez, but she declined. Like most critics, she accuses Claudia Sheinbaum of being a mere puppet of Mr. López Obrador, something the former environmental scientist firmly denies.
I feel sure about myself. I don't care about these things that they say. Of course, I'm of the same movement with López Obrador. We fought together for 20 years or more than 20 years to have the government that we have now, and the opportunity for Mexican people and the right for Mexican people, the rights. And of course, I'm going to live a different time in history.
A woman president in Mexico is hugely significant and long overdue. Yet the biggest challenge still lies ahead, in undoing centuries of sexism and gender inequality in one of the most patriarchal societies in the Americas. Will Grant, BBC News, Veracruz, Mexico.
Bueno, si ustedes se percatan, solamente pusieron más imágenes de Claudia Sheinbaum. BBC no entrevistó a Xochitl Gálvez, tampoco lo hizo la gente de ABC News. Y es evidente, usted ha visto, aquí hemos presentado imágenes de donde los actos públicos de campaña para Claudia Sheinbaum, dan dinero y la gente le deja las sillas vacías. ¿Qué pasa con esas imágenes? Es más, el corresponsal de ABC News reporta allí en la colonia Cuauhtémoc desde el edificio de la Asociación de Corresponsales Extranjeros. Conozco el edificio, he estado allí, tengo varios amigos corresponsales. De hecho, algunos de ellos me comentan que cada semana tienen años haciendo fiestas y el licor se los envía Jesús Ramírez, de Presidencia de la República, junto con deliciosos platillos para que se diviertan un rato. No todos los corresponsales van, los europeos no entran en este juego, pero algunos sí. Algunos corresponsales que escriben en el New York Times, vendido a Carlos Slim, otros de Los Angeles Times y del Telegram, otros de ABC News, como lo vimos, y pues nos queda evidente que a lo mejor también el de BBC News de Londres está yendo ahí, porque se ve una tendencia muy marcada a favorecer a Xochitl, y eso no me gusta, no me satisface. Tengo más de 45 años ejerciendo el periodismo, desde que tenía los 16 años. Tengo 64, 63, échele números. He estado en periódico semanario, La Prensa de Acámbaro, en El Sol del Bajío, simultáneamente las mejores notas las pasaban en El Sol de México y Todos los Soles en el estado de Guanajuato. Después de allí me fui al periódico El Norte de Monterrey, padre del grupo Reforma, luego estuve un tiempo en Televisa, me peleé con el director y bueno, me salió la invitación a Turner Broadcasting System, donde estuve más de 25 años. Después de allí estuve en Fox Television International y ahora también he estado en Fox Media, que es una cadena muy grande de radio, televisión y periódicos. Y ahora tengo este enlace con CNN, un programa experimental para Internet, que ellos lo estudian y están sacando números solamente y tendencias y viendo qué tan objetiva es la audiencia, porque no solamente el periodista tiene que ser objetivo, también la audiencia. Ahora les voy a poner otra nota cubierta por NBC News, pero desde la frontera de San Diego y Tijuana. Quizás por la proximidad territorial, ahí vamos a ver la diferencia de ángulos, la diferencia en la cobertura. Y eso a mí me llama mucho la atención porque me hace pensar demasiado en que algo pasa, algo influye, y yo realmente pues lo que quiero es sacar lo más objetivo para ustedes. Permítanme un segundo, voy a poner la nota desde el principio, pero todo esto está pasando hoy en las cadenas norteamericanas y ya están anunciando para los domingos toda la mañana. Los norteamericanos ponen programas políticos y entonces lo que muchos están haciendo, como CBS con Margaret Brennan y ABC con el chaparrito se me olvidó, que fue jefe de staff de Bill Clinton, Stephanopoulos, y también en Fox están anunciando que van ellos a cubrir parte de la elección en vivo.
You're watching NBC San Diego News.
It's being described as the largest election in Mexico's history. Nearly nearly 100 million Mexicans will decide their country's path forward as they vote on more than 20,000 government positions at the federal and local levels.
El derecho de votar, pues todos como mexicanos queremos que se oigan nuestros derechos.
But with more than 20 political candidates killed just this year, cartel violence continues to overshadow this historic election.
Y el hecho de la alcaldesa se refugie en el cuartel militar pues refleja lo que todos los ciudadanos quisiéramos, ¿no? Vivir en un cuartel resguardados con un equipo de seguridad suficiente.
So what's on the line for our neighbors across the border and for us here in the U.S.? And with nearly 11 million Mexican U.S.-based expats participating in the vote, including here in Southern California, will their vote make an impact? Plus, could this election bring Mexico's first ever female president?
No voy a decir que ya es una batalla ganada porque sigo teniendo o viendo incluso en mi puesto y con las mujeres a mi alrededor que sigue habiendo retos.
We preview Mexico's largest election to date.
Thanks for joining us. I'm Monica Dean.
And I'm Rigo Villalobos. In just days, Mexican citizens will head to the polls for one specific thing, to cast a vote for a new president, and others in a bid to make history.
Not only could Mexico have its first woman president, but Mexican citizens outside the country can cast a vote for the first time. We have a lot of ground to cover in this half-hour special. You can count on NBC7 and Telemundo 20 to better inform you, the voter, and your family about this critical election that is sure to have lasting implications across the U.S. and right here in San Diego. Decisions surrounding the border, international relations, crime, including the fentanyl crisis, the economy here in California and in Mexico, and immigration policy all stand to be influenced by the outcome of this election.
Mexico will hold their election Sunday, June the 2nd. Mexican citizens will vote for all 628 seats in Congress and thousands of local officials as well. Up to this point, many Mexican citizens living in the U.S. have already cast their ballots through mail, online, or in person at Mexican consulates.
We begin this special at the federal level. Mexico will have a chance to make history when they elect a new president this election cycle.
That is because one of the three frontrunners, two of the presidential candidates, are women. Here's a look at their political strategies and ideas. This will likely be a historic election. There are three candidates in total, but two of the frontrunners are women, which means one thing, that for the first time in its history, Mexico could have a first woman president. But who are the candidates? Who are these three? Let's begin with Jorge Álvarez Maínez. The big question is, who is he? Let's take a look. He's a national legislator. He represents Movimiento Ciudadano, which means in English, Citizens Movement. He is 38 years old. The question is, what are his proposals? Let's take a look. One of the main ones, he has always said that is to regulate drug consumption, as well as to fight for civil liberties. One of the other one is government transparency and public safety, among others. Now let's take a look at Xochitl Gálvez. She represents Coalición, Fuerza y Corazón por México, which means that she's the opposition to the current government. She represents, this is very important, she represents the three main right-wing parties in the country, which are PRI, PAN, and PRD. She's a senator, 60 years old. She's a computer engineer, and among her promises are the following: a change in the security system in Mexico, as well as to better the economy, to support small businesses, and to eliminate taxes. But when she means eliminate taxes, she doesn't mean for everyone in Mexico. She's talking about for those who make 15,000 pesos per month, which is equivalent to less than $900 per month. And lastly, Claudia Sheinbaum. She's a former mayor of Mexico City. She is 61 years old. She's part of Morena, Mexico's largest political party. What are her proposals? We have them here. To create this 2 million new jobs. But that's not all. She says that she wants to continue investing in public safety, as well as to expand the welfare programs, energy projects, also very important for her. In other words, these are the three candidates hoping to be the next president of Mexico. They all have different proposals, different backgrounds, but at the same time, they have something in common: to win the majority of the votes, and they do it with one purpose: This is it, to become the successor of the actual president of Mexico, Andrés Manuel López Obrador.
So, Rigo, the Telemundo 20 team has been covering this election for some time now, giving voters the information that they need to make an informed decision. And now that you've introduced us to the presidential candidates, as a journalist who has been talking to Mexican citizens, what are some of the top priorities for voters when selecting a candidate?
Monica, we've been working on this kind of stories for weeks already. We know there are many concerns. One of the main ones is safety. We know we have spoken to many Mexican nationals, and they say they hope to feel safer on the streets, especially when they send their children to school, especially when they have to go buy groceries, anything like that. They say that's one of their priority. They have the fear of violence, something they have seen over and over on the streets. One of the main hopes is to see less crime on the streets.
And it's really become commonplace for so many people. They've almost become immune to it. We've seen so much violence.
You can just imagine, a new study from NBC News says more than 30 candidates or aspiring candidates have been killed just in the last few months, these elections. So that's incredible. If you think about how many candidates or pre-candidates have been killed, what would happen to the regular people? You know, people who sometimes don't have a voice. That's one of the things. Another one of the main concerns that we have spoken to several families is education. Only 1 out of 5 people in Mexico have access to education. So that's one of the main things they're planning to vote for. And another thing very important is the relationship between Mexico and the U.S. Whoever the president becomes, as well in both countries, they want to have something strong.
There will certainly be lasting implications. Well, thank you. When it comes to Mexican citizens living here in the U.S., they may have the same or different priorities. NBC San Diego anchor Mark Mullen sat down with political analyst Carlos Garcia, who explains how each candidate will impact us right here in San Diego.
Voters in Mexico will elect a new president, and with the new leader comes new challenges and new opportunities in Mexico that will impact many binational cities, including, of course, here in San Diego. We are now joined by political analyst Dr. Carlos Garcia from CETIS University for more on this bigger impact on how this will affect U.S.-Mexico relations. So, Doctor, thanks so much for making time for us. So, this is really shaping up to be a fascinating race and potentially historic. Of the 3 main presidential candidates, 2 are women. One, Claudia Sheinbaum, is polling double digits above everyone else, right? She was a student activist turned scientist, former environmental secretary, former mayor of Mexico City, and has a Jewish background. And she's now poised to become Mexico's next president if the polls hold, correct?
That is correct. That is correct. We are seeing for the first time the opportunity for the electorate to choose between 3 candidates. 2 of them are women. Important to notice that this is relevant from a perspective of having the gender perspective present in our election system in a way that it's truly akin to what's happening in other democracies. Now, having said that, we firmly consider that the important thing is to make sure that the choice of the electorate is because of the candidate, regardless of gender. We are very happy for the fact that nowadays 2 women are represented in the electoral ballot.
Right, 2 of the main 3. Current President López Obrador leaves behind a Mexican economy that has really exceeded analysts' expectations for growth, employment, market gains, a strong peso. Should Sheinbaum be elected, do you expect her to continue the policies that has Mexico on the rise because they are of the same party?
We certainly expect continuity if she wins. Now, having said that, also it is important to mention that most of the economic progress that is being felt in Mexico nowadays comes from external factors, not to take anything away from what the current president has achieved, but let us also remember that post-pandemic there is a bloc integration movement or trend happening across the globe, and Mexico is poised to capitalize that. We are calling this nearshoring. Some other regions are giving it different names. Let us remember that Mexico is formally integrated in a bloc with North America since 1994 with the NAFTA, which is now obviously the USMCA. So let's make sure that we distinguish what is happening because of a growing worldwide economy and opportunities to that what is happening because of the policies that have been adopted in Mexico.
Fair enough. As you security remains a big priority for Mexican voters, according especially to recent polling with fear about drug-related violence and such. Immigration obviously is big too. Do you see Mexico's stance on immigration with the United States changing after this next election?
I think that this is a critical factor and one that is always poised to be impacted by the political winds. Now, the Mexican current president and most likely the new president, if Claudia Sheinbaum comes to the presidency because of her the way that she's performing in the polls, will most likely follow the same criteria and the same policies that are being followed nowadays. This will mean that we will most likely continue to see a similar trend in migration. We would expect to see more cooperation, but and an indication of the past is what's most likely to happen in the very near future.
Is that on perhaps at the top of the wish list for the next Mexican president? What would they like to see out of the United States?
I think that the United States would like to see from Mexico more cooperation in matters related to border security and fighting organized crime. This would give also Mexico an opportunity to present stronger, more robust institutions that what we call Estado de Derecho, the rule of law, being in Mexico something that can be strong and can be present and can be an element towards giving us a better negotiating position with the U.S. in different manners and in different aspects of our joint role in a joint society. We are two nations that are joined together not only by geography but by the economic and cultural and social dynamics that interplay not only at the border but also with migrants in a number of cities in the U.S.
Certainly so. Last one from me. Do you think U.S.-Mexico relations in the future will be influenced more by who is elected president in Mexico or who's elected president here in the United States?
I think both will certainly play a role. Both decisions will certainly impact economics. The political game always has rhetoric attached to it. We have seen what President Trump has said about Mexicans in his day. We have seen what the current Mexican president has said about the U.S. and its president in other moments in time. So that's always going to be around. We have to distinguish from the noise. We have to distinguish that from the noise, and we have to realize that we are the product of centuries of proximity and years of integration, and that is going to continue to be around for a number of years. Hopefully, we can generate the kind of policies and the kind of and the kind of decisions that will lead to further cooperation and a more integrated society.
Dr.
Bueno, perdón. Esta es, pues, de primera mano, los primeros reportes, pero yo, como se los digo, yo siento más cargada la tendencia a favorecer a Claudia Sheinbaum. No se han dicho en ninguno de los 4 reportajes cosas de los proyectos que tiene en mente Xóchitl Gálvez. La mencionan como candidata, pero no como una favorita, como lo que realmente es en México. Parece ser que en inglés cambió la traducción. La favorita ahora de los reporteros no es de los americanos. Claudia Sheinbaum, por favor, ojalá que de aquí a mañana esos periodistas que a lo mejor recibieron también su sobrecito amarillo se pongan a estudiar español y traduzcan mejor, porque esto no me convence. Estaremos informando. Buenas noches, buenos días, nos vemos y nos escuchamos. Mañana tenemos 5 transmisiones en vivo. Que estén muy bien. Gracias.
Frank Durán Rosillo te saluda y los saluda a todos ustedes, su amiga María Celeste Raraz, para invitarlos a que se suscriban a mi canal de YouTube, María Celeste Raraz, tal como mi nombre, donde les informo todas las semanas sobre entrevistas que tienen un tema que ayuda a mejorarnos como personas y de paso son interesantes. Las pueden encontrar en mi canal de YouTube, así que los espero. Y se suscriben gratis.
Escuchaste el análisis de la noticia, transparente como el agua, con el periodista Francisco Durán Rosillo.